But another set of powered blade cutters redefines the notion of ultra sharpness by cutting not just through wood, but anything else. And we mean anything. Enter the almighty Primax, manufactured by SSI Shredding Systems of Oregon. The Primax was called on to clear the debris from New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina. It's the perfect tool for demolition sites and huge recycling projects. It can reduce unwanted bulk to a fraction of its original mass.
Well, here's what's left over from the sofa. You have a chunk of the fabric, piece of the back cushion. Here's the foam that you actually would sit on, and a big chunk of the wood from the bottom of it. This machine will just process it all.
Inside the Primax's gaping mouth, two parallel shafts each hold 6 3-inch thick steel circular cutters, rimmed with pointed hooks.
These things are really designed to shred almost anything. These cutters have a piercing point on them. They literally pierce the material, and then the material is brought down into the root of the cutter, where the actual torque is transferred into it, and then it uses just brute force to break the material.
That brute force is supplied by a 700 horsepower diesel engine. It enables the shredder to digest up to 150 tons of material every hour.
The machine's really just designed to take the airspace out of the material, break it down, and prepare it for either transportation or recycling operations.
But some recycling operations, like those processing rubber tires and plastic products, require shredders that can break down material into much smaller pieces. This makes it easier to process the material into something new. The answer is a shredder like this one, with blades positioned much closer together than those of the Primax.
You have two cutters here, and in between them is a surface that's just exactly like between the two surfaces of the scissors here. What we have is a whole bunch of what I call shear pairs, which are just exactly like scissors, and the shafts are turning, and they force those scissors to come together right there at the joint, and material falling in there. It's just like having a whole line of scissors and a whole bunch of people just snip, 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 all simultaneously, doing that as it goes across. One of the things that can happen is when you're cutting paper, you're sort of keeping the two halves of the blade tight together, and then they shear the paper quite nicely, and you get a nice clean cut. Well, what can also happen is if you turn the scissors sideways, you can get a situation where the paper is laying right between the cutters, right down the middle, and it's not sheared at all. Well, you can have exactly the same situation here on this shredder. Unless we keep that stuff tight, all of these cutters and spacers very tight, we're trying to go to about 10,000ths of an inch gap between each cutter so that we get a good shearing action at each joint.
An effective shearing action without a sharp edge would render these shredders as little more than giant mechanized kids' safety scissors. So to ensure those sharp edges make the grade, SSI's engineers produce them using a meticulous hardening process.
We take a hand grinder and grind a weld prep or a beveled 45-degree angle along the whole edge. And what we're going to do is fill that area in with weld, and after it cools and settles, it becomes incredibly hard.
Next, workers grind down the irregular welded sides of each blade. Then, an automatic grinder flattens and smooths the face.
And this flat combined with this flat makes for this edge now to be really, really, really sharp. These really tight tolerances in the super flat blade gives us that sort of shearing action that we really like when the blades are really close together. The closer they are and the sharper they are, the better it does for shearing.
The blades team together to create 15,000 times the shearing force of a single pair of scissors.
We've got about 35 or 40 cutters in this machine, so about 4,000 inches of scissor action. And then if you look at this machine turning at about 20 RPM, we have about a mile of scissor length that we're cutting per minute.
By adding a second pair of bladed shafts and an underlying screen, leftover shreds fall out as little more than particles. Not every tool vying for the title of world's sharpest